What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Tailgate Report podcast. We are back for another week of some pretty awesome sporting events. We've had a couple big ones over the course of this past weekend, and really looking forward to breaking those down, jumping into it a little bit, as well as preparing for some of the upcoming seasons, mostly that being F1, as well as some college baseball. As you guys know, I'm a massive baseball guy, Minnesota Twins fan for the major leagues, but we also have college baseball working its way into the mix coming very shortly. So looking forward to diving into that a little bit and taking things to kind of the new time of the year. Football has officially kind of passed by, and we're looking towards those more spring-centered sports. So Formula One, obviously golf has kind of already began, but golf more heavily now, really. And then naturally, of course, we have baseball, and college baseball being a factor of that as well. So with all that being said, guys, if this is your first time popping in here, I just wanted to say thank you guys for stopping by. Hopefully you hang out and enjoy what we break down a little bit today. As always, if you do enjoy, please feel free to share, like, comment, all of those things. They help out a ton. They help get the word out about the podcast, and it also allows for me to interact with you guys a little bit and come up with some topics that we can discuss in the coming weeks. With that being said, though, we will go ahead and pop in to the first conversation point, which of course will be the Super Bowl. Now, I gotta be honest, I was not a fan of the Super Bowl at all. I thought that this Super Bowl was incredibly boring. It definitely went the way that I thought it was going to go. I kind of expected the Seahawks to win the game pretty handily, as a matter of fact. And they really did. You know, right off the bat, they came out of the gates pretty hot. Their defense played absolutely incredible all game. Biggest area really for them was their defense. Early on, the Patriots couldn't do a dang thing. It was just very boring football, and it kind of continued that way for the majority of the game. Obviously, as we go through a couple of the stats here, leading it off with my guy Sam Darnold, man. This was so cool for me to watch because he obviously was on the Vikings last season, had a great year with the Vikings. Unfortunately, we did not make the best judgment call. We let him go. He wanted to stay. We just didn't let him stay. And then he goes to the Seattle Seahawks and he wins himself a Super Bowl. Now, not saying if he did stay, we were going to win a Super Bowl, because by all means, the Minnesota Vikings did not have an overly competitive squad this year, with primarily that being from injuries. But, with the Seattle defense that they had, man, dude, that team was just tough to beat, as well as the offense that they were able to do, with Kenneth Walker really going off in the playoffs. And, Cooper Kupp even really showing his veteranness in the playoffs and really having a couple big games. Darnold didn't have to do overly a lot. He had 200 yards and a touchdown. He played a very clean game, but it wasn't anything to blow up the stat sheet. But nonetheless, that's what's expected of him. They don't need him to do crazy things when their defense is able to do what they can do, and Kenneth Walker is able to run for 135 rushing yards and just to seemingly run all over that defense. So once again, Kenneth Walker was also the MVP, which is pretty awesome. That guy he's always been a stud, but he's always been kind of a guy that was dinged up with injuries, and he just really put together a great season this year. He had a ton of playoff explosiveness, really showcased himself as one of the better running backs in the NFL, I think. And then also pretty cool to see Cooper Kupp, man. Cooper Kupp had 6 catches for 61 yards, had himself a pretty good game. He led the team in receiving in the Super Bowl, which I thought was pretty awesome. Obviously they just took down the Rams the week prior, or 2 weeks prior, his former team, to get back to the Super Bowl, and he was able to win himself a second Super Bowl ring. So shout out Cooper Kupp, man. Awesome performance for him in the Super Bowl, and just a good dude. So really cool to see. And then AJ Barner, the young tight end, man, he's had himself a great season as well. Really starting to fill into the role there for Seattle. 4 catches, 54, and a touchdown. Had himself a really nice game as well. And, bouncing over to the Patriots, I think I've stressed this opinion a little bit in the past, but I'm not the biggest Drake May guy. I don't think he is that good of a quarterback. I think he is good, but I don't think he's great. He had 300 yards passing. He had 2 touchdowns, but he did also have 2 interceptions. And let's be honest, the one touchdown that he had to Ramondre Stevenson was like a absolute horrible pass that luckily Ramondre was capable of getting down and basically picking it off the ground, and nobody was near him. So he was able to just, walk it right in. But just not even a good pass on that one. And it's just kind of a performance that I think just kind of showcased that Drake May's still young. He's not fully there. Granted, he did play against an incredible defense who absolutely ravaged the Patriots O-line. So I do also understand where things are coming from with that. But, I think he's a great quarterback. I don't think he's that guy that everyone really thinks he is. Funny thing is he also did lead the team in rushing once again with 37 rushing yards. I don't really know what's going on with TreVeyon Henderson. He started to really showcase his role in those last coming weeks of the regular season. And then, man, he just really took a big step back and just kind of lacked a lot of production for almost the entirety of the playoffs, really. Pretty funny to see a guy like Mac Hollins coming out and leading the team in receiving with 4 for 78 and a touchdown. Out of all of the names on that roster, Mac Hollins would not have been my pick to be the number 1 guy. But pretty cool to see that they were still spreading the ball around. And Ramondre Stevenson had 5 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. And obviously that one really, really big touchdown that somewhat made the game a little bit more salvageable. Obviously, inevitably, though, things did not work out for the Patriots, and the Seattle Seahawks were able to get the job done. So kind of crazy that we're already through football season. It was an awesome football season. There were some really good matchups. Kind of a unique season, finally, with some newer teams getting shifted into the winning column, seeing a little bit of a turnaround in some of these different teams, which is always fun. The Chiefs have kind of ran the show for the last decade, almost, it feels like. So having them not even make the playoffs, it kind of shows that there's certain areas where the tides are turning a little bit. So I think next year especially, it'll be really neat to see which teams really do start making some strides and which teams kind of start to fluster and fall back away from their winning ways. Once again, it was a great season, a fun season. Hopefully my Vikings can do a little bit better next season because we got something to build on. We really need to figure that out. But next up, we're going to jump on into the PGA Tour. Really, really fun tournament this week down in the Phoenix Waste Management. One of the best tournaments of the season, in my opinion. Super loud, super rowdy, really fun atmosphere. For those of you that might have tuned in, you have moments on 16 where, Joel Damon's wearing a Seahawks helmet and chips in and just the crowd goes wild. It's one of the coolest environments in golf. I don't think anybody could take away from that. And the actual tournament was also incredibly fun to watch. It was a very neck and neck tournament up until the last day, really. And we had a situation where Matsuyama had a pretty good lead. Thor Bjornsson had a massive eagle to kind of go ahead, but then bogeyed, allowing Matsuyama to then retain the lead. Going into the back 2, I believe it was the last 2 holes, Matsuyama had a huge bogey that actually brought him back down, tying up with Chris Gotterup, who really climbed the ranks again this week, and goes to a playoff hole and inevitably wins the entire tournament. So through 4 tournaments of the season, Chris Gotterup has 2 victories, as well as, I believe, a top 10. So the guy is just playing some elite golf right now, kind of a newer name on tour, and really making his name known very early on in the career for him. So really cool to see. He's a fun guy to watch, hits the ball really hard, and really just a fun tournament to enjoy watching over the course of this past weekend. Now, heading on into this coming week, we've got one of the bigger tournaments of the year. We have the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Last year, we saw Rory McIlroy win this tournament and lead himself down into the moment where he was able to win the career Grand Slam with golf and win the Masters. So really cool to see Rory McIlroy back this tournament. It'll be his first one of the season he's playing in. And of course, it's at the one that he won last year. So it's going to be really enjoyable to watch. A lot of big name guys are going to be playing this weekend. Obviously, when we talk about odds, no shocker that Scottie Scheffler is the favorite at plus 300. He had one of the most horrible rounds of golf, and I say horrible, but for him, horrible rounds of golf that I've ever watched him play on Thursday last week, and then just completely did a 180, man, and comes back and basically sets himself up for an opportunity to win the entire tournament. And that's something that very few players in the world can do, and Scottie Scheffler is one of them. So he's going to be favored in every tournament he plays in, and I really do believe that. So it'll be kind of interesting to see if he kind of gets that Thursday round out of his way and he puts together a really good 4-day weekend. And if he does, I don't think there's any doubt he's able to walk away with the win this week. Obviously then following at plus 1300, we have Rory McIlroy, previous winner, massive golfer, been a hell of a career for the guy, always up there in the top rankings as well. And then plus 2000, we got my boy, Siwoo Kim. He also had a good tournament again, man. Siwoo Kim's been having a great season so far. Fun guy to watch, aggressive player. I really enjoy watching him. Guys on tour love playing with him, love being paired with him. So I'd really like to see him have himself a great week and get himself into the final day as well. And then at plus 2,500, we got a new name up there for this week. We got Tommy Fleetwood. Last year, Tommy Fleetwood finally got his first win on tour after having, it seems like, double digits second places over his career. He just could never get over the hump of second place, and then he finally did. So it'll be really fun to watch him play this weekend at plus 2,500, right there sharing that with Xander Schauffele. And then moving into plus 2,700, also a new name on these top rankings is Viktor Hovland. Now, Viktor Hovland, man, he is a great golfer, but over the last couple of years, he's had some moments of struggling to find his swing, and he's really kind of dropped off in those rankings. So it'll be really cool to see him bounce back and kind of start getting back to the Viktor Hovland that we do remember from a couple of years past. And he's right there at plus 2,700 with Cam Young, one of my other favorite guys to watch. Now, with that being said, one thing I thought it'd be kind of fun to do would be to kind of touch on where the FedEx Cup standings are at through these first 4 tournaments. Now, obviously, very early in the year, 4 tournaments is absolutely nothing. There's a lot of big names that haven't played yet, a lot of big names that might have had one bad week. But nonetheless, to kind of just see where we're at, it's kind of fun to do. And I thought it was pretty cool to see, right at number 1, we do have Chris Gotterup pictured in the white hat right here where my mouse is. And really cool to see him have himself a heck of a start to the year, placing himself number 1 in the entire FedEx Cup standings, even above Scottie Scheffler with those 2 wins. Obviously, number 2, Scottie Scheffler, we know exactly who he is. Number 3, also a pretty new name to the tour, is Ryan Gerard, who had himself I believe he had himself a win on the first week of tour this year. So really cool for him to get a hot start. He's been playing some pretty good golf. I recall him quite a bit from last year, having some good tournaments. He's got himself at number 3. And then number 4, we got Justin Rose, who absolutely dominated last tournament, was able to win that by about 7 strokes, I recall it was, and just absolutely smashing the ball that day. So really cool to see him up there again. He's a good dude. He's been there for a while. Really good golfer. Number 5, once again, my man, Siwoo Kim, playing some just consistent golf. Hasn't gotten a win yet, but he's number 5 because he's had 4 consistently really good tournaments. Awesome to see that out of him. And then Hideki Matsuyama up there at number 6 as well. Obviously, winning the tournament in Phoenix would have probably put him up to around 4. But nonetheless, he's been playing some great golf. He can't really get too mad at a number 2 spot. Really looking good. And it's been a while since he's been, kind of on top of his game too. So it'd be kind of cool to see. Number 7, also, we got a pretty new name as well at Pearson Coody, who is one of the newer guys as well. He's had a great season to start so far. Had himself a great day on Saturday, I believe it was. Put himself up there in the top rankings on this last tournament. Just couldn't quite do it on a Sunday. One of my new upcoming favorite guys to watch as well is Ryo Hisatsune, I believe is how you say it. Young 23-year-old dude, new to tour, had a pretty good season last year. And then this year as well, had a heck of I think of Friday, he played great for the Phoenix Open. Young guy, really starting to catch his stride. Be really fun to see where he goes this season. Jake Knapp, kind of a name that's been around for a couple of years. Had some really good years, had some really not good years. Consistently playing pretty well this season, just hasn't been able to crack his way up into some of those top places, but the dude is a bomber off the tee, hits it really hard, and I'm hoping he has himself a nice bounce back year. And then Matt McCarty, one of the other new guys on tour, right there at number 10. Also played pretty well in a couple of tournaments this season, got himself into that top 10 ranking. And really cool to see some of these young new names that are starting to make their mark on the PGA Tour, really. So going to be really fun to see where these guys go in the upcoming weeks. With that being said, let's drop the bomb, or maybe the two bombs based on the image you guys are taking a peek at here. But finally, guys, we were able to get the Cadillac livery revealed. And dude, I gotta tell you, I think this car is sick. The white, the black, the alternating sides of the car, I think it is one of the dopest liveries in the entire sport. And just the way it looks, the flow, that italic Cadillac on there, I think it looks incredibly clean and very sleek. And obviously you can see a couple of those big sponsors on there. We got Tenneco, Pirelli, Tommy Hilfiger, TWG, and then Jim Beam's hanging out down there on the bottom. Claro, I think it's just a really cool looking car. I love the livery that they decided to go with there. And ironically, about 30 minutes ago, they just got done with some of the highlights from the Bahrain preseason testing. And we were able to watch a little bit of Cadillac as well as Audi. And I got to be honest, man, Audi's livery is also really hitting head for me. That is a sick look too. That silver with a little bit of the red and the black. I think that's a super clean look as well. And they actually had themselves a pretty solid testing. They were able to actually have Nico Hulkenberg took number 9 in the first day of testing and placement. And moving on over now towards the back end of testing, where unfortunately we kind of see where Cadillac falls. Sergio Perez was down there at 14 and Valtteri Bottas was down there at 16. Only two people they were really ahead of was Lance Stroll and Franco Colapinto, and Gabriel Bortoleto split the two Cadillacs at 15 in the other Audi. So obviously very early in the season, the testing is very much just beginning, but nonetheless, very, very happy to see the livery being revealed the way it was. I thought it was a super cool way to do it, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it looks incredible, and I am absolutely pumped for the season coming up. I'm going to definitely have to get myself some Cadillac F1 merch, whether that's a shirt or a hat, or something like it, because I'm pumped for it. And guys, with that being said, we will kind of hop into really the last topic I wanted to cover for today's episode, and that is the opening season of college baseball. Unfortunately, my picture is a little bit blurred. I wanted to make it big enough so we can see it on the video cam, but also, try to not have it overly blurred. But what we have here is the preseason top 25 rankings. UCLA leading it off at number 1, LSU number 2, who just won it last season. UCLA has the number 1 projected pick in the draft this year, Rock Shalowski at shortstop. Going to be a really fun season. Georgia Tech has an incredible offense as well. Drew Burris is one of the other big dogs for the draft this year, playing for Georgia Tech. And overall, it's kind of a cool year, man. It's a cool mix-up of teams. We got Southern Miss up there. We got Florida State. We got Miami up there, Arizona, and then Texas A&M is the only team listed up here that actually did not go to a regional last year. So out of every team up there, these are all teams that had a great season last year and are looking to build on that. I'm really, really excited for it, and it's going to be a fun season to watch. Now, on the right here, I did just put down a couple of those opening day games that I personally am going to try to tune into. And right at 8:30, all the way down in Puerto Rico, we got Houston taking on number 21 Wake Forest. I think that that'll be a really fun game to watch. Houston has a fairly decent program, and being the first game to really kick off the season down in Puerto Rico, I think it'll be a very fun one to have a cup of coffee with and start your morning out on Friday. And then we got 11 a.m. We got Texas Tech versus Oklahoma at Globe Life Field. So playing right there in the big league stadium, I should say. And we got two teams that they've made their way into the rankings over the last couple of years multiple times. And Texas Tech and Oklahoma both looking to have themselves a big season this year. So it'll be really fun to watch that one. And then at 3 o'clock, we have the first ranked matchup of the season as number 23 Vandy takes on number 10 TCU. And I think this will be really, really fun. We'll get to see those number ones go at it in a big time heated matchup right out of the gate. Really fun to see. A lot of high energy with the opening weekend. Definitely one I will be tuning into. And then I'll be probably flipping back and forth between these two, or I'll be splitting my monitor screens with it. But we got Michigan versus Oregon State. And Michigan is a team that I think they really might have themselves a good year here. I got big expectations out of them. They've been a pretty good Big Ten team for quite a while. But they're going to have to go through a pretty darn tough team in Oregon State, who has arguably one of the best starting pitching staffs in the entire country. Dax Whitney being one of those big names coming from that team. So it'll be a really enjoyable one to flip between at 3 o'clock. And then coming in towards those later hours of the evening at 7 o'clock, we got Nebraska versus UConn. I think this one will be a really fun one too. Nebraska's had themselves a pretty good couple of seasons of baseball. UConn is one of those kind of consistent Big East winners. So be a really fun little Big East, Big Ten connection matchup here to see who really starts off the season as one of those mid-ranked teams but gets the upper edge early. And then closing out the evening, if you guys are kind of night owls like I am myself sometimes on a Friday night, we've got Hawaii taking on Gonzaga. And Gonzaga has been one of those teams as well over there in the Mountain West that have had themselves a couple pretty good seasons, even cracked into the top 25 a couple of years ago, I believe. And then let's be honest, the Hawaii baseball team, they're always just a fun team to watch. A lot of energy, a lot of passion in the game over there. A lot of the environment over there is just incredible for baseball. So if you guys are hanging out, enjoying the evening, maybe sipping a little cocktail at the end of your Friday work week, I highly recommend tuning in to Hawaii versus Gonzaga. But guys, with that all being said, that is kind of where I wanted to sum up this week's podcast. There's been obviously a lot going on. A lot of new sports are kind of starting to turn their heads over and welcome themselves to our podcast. And, you know, college baseball, obviously, same with MLB, they play so frequently. I'm not going to be doing a recap of every single game of every single team. I'm going to kind of pick and choose every now and then to do like a week-to-week basis on some of the bigger games, some of the bigger sports moments. Probably, honestly, I'll split that between MLB as well as college in certain moments. And, you know, obviously golf and F1 are going to be the two that we're going to kind of really hone into as this season's really start to open up. And with that all being said, you know, tennis is, as I mentioned, going to be another really big topic for this podcast. But that being said, I'm not going to really cover every single week of the tennis rankings. What I'll probably do is every month, I'm going to jump in and kind of just take a peek at where the actual tennis rankings are currently situated. And over the course of the year, we'll kind of jump back and forth through all of that and see where they are kind of holding on to. Because I know there's a couple big tournaments going on right now, and I'm not really sure where they exactly are at. But we are taking a peek here. And I believe the next one to pop up for us would be Roland Garros, will be the next big major for tennis. And that's going to be taking place here in late May. So not for a couple of months, but nonetheless, we're still going to be hopping in and covering some tennis throughout that. And with that all being said, though, guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. We touched on a couple of new topics, a couple of new sports. And if there's anything you guys would like to discuss next week, leave it down in the comments below, either on YouTube or on Spotify. And once again, I appreciate all the feedback, the support, the likes, the shares, all the above. You guys have been incredible, and I will look forward to seeing you guys next week. Take care, everybody.